Next item number 1 under presentations. This is a presentation about the Regional Housing Authority, and it's going to be by their director, Gus Becerra. Good evening, Gus.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Can you hear me and see me okay?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. So I want to thank you all for the invitation and the opportunity to present on behalf of our agency. Mr. Mayor, you had asked to present and talk a little bit about what our agency, what we do, who we are, with the primary focus, obviously, of what we're doing in Yuba City. So with me tonight is Ms. Becky Flores, our Planning and Community Development Manager. So between the two of us, we'll present. So our agency, as you may know, operates in 4 different counties, but Sutter, Nevada, Yuba, and Colusa. But our genesis was here in Sutter County, in Yuba City, through farm labor housing back in the 1940s, post-World War II. And so I want to talk a little bit today about some of our core programs, again, with a primary focus about what we do in Yuba City. So next slide, please, Sarah. Our Housing Choice Voucher program, primarily or most normally known as our Section 8 program. In our 4-county region, we administer a little over 1,800 vouchers, with about 540 of those being in Yuba City. So that accounts for about 30% of our voucher allocation. The voucher program, as you may know, is a HUD-funded program that assists tenants with payments made directly to landlords based on their income. So if they make 80% of area median income or less, you can qualify to participate in this program. Rent payments are roughly structured at 30% of their income, with the difference being paid by HUD directly to the landlord. So as I mentioned, 30% of our program being in Yuba City. It's probably our largest allocation of the program between all of the cities and unincorporated area of the 4 counties we serve in. Next slide, please. Another program that's within the voucher program, so it's within the 1,800 plus vouchers, are Vouchers. These vouchers are administered in partnership and coordination with the VA, and they're restricted to veterans only. So veterans of our military who are getting case management services through the VA, and this program allotted vouchers to Sutter County, 29 of them, and the majority of those, because the majority of the housings in Yuba City are used in Yuba City, and they came when our VA clinic was inaugurated here in Yuba City. So the timing of those vouchers were great because we have a local VA clinic serving our veterans, and so those are really vital to veterans that need case management that have served our country. Next slide, please, Sarah. Our Family Self-Sufficiency program, also a program within the voucher program. This is a pretty cool program that coordinates case management services for folks that are looking to get back into the workforce and get off of assistance. And so through our staff works closely with like the Sutter County One Stop and workforce development to connect them with services and case management to whether it be educational goals or help with their resumes and things like that, to primarily get folks back into the workforce. And then they, so to speak, graduate from this program, and once they get off of assistance, HUD rewards them with a payment of the difference of when they entered the program and how much HUD was paying on their behalf to landlords for rental assistance. And then as they work and their income continues to grow and their rental assistance continues to drop till they get to 0, HUD has a formula where they will reward this individual or family for getting off of assistance and then being 100% self-sufficient. So it's a pretty cool program. Whenever we have graduates of this program, we bring them to our Board of Commissioners for a small presentation, a photo opportunity, and present them the check, for them to be on their own. So it's a really cool program. Next slide, please, here. Another one of our core programs is public housing, also a HUD program. The Housing Authority has 3 public housing properties, 2 of which are in Yuba City and 1 in the city of Live Oak. The 2 in Yuba City, and you can go to the next slide, Ciara, and we could see some photos of them. The 2 in Yuba City, one of them is on Joanne Way, and the other one is inside Richland housing community there. As you can see in the photo, the one in the middle, also known as River City Manor, is for elderly and or disabled. We have 24 units, all 1 bedrooms. And then the other property of HUD Public Housing are 99 units within Richland. And these are 80% area of median income eligibility or below. And so we have, out of the 99 in Richland, 14 of those for seniors, and the rest of them for families, 2 and 3 bedrooms primarily, except for the 14 units for seniors. But over on Joanne Way, they're all for seniors, and they're all 1 bedroom. So this particular program, public housing, has historically been a very difficult program to administer for housing authorities because HUD has really cut back on funding, probably starting about 10, 12 years ago. And so it's been very difficult to maintain these properties at a high standard. And as you know, we've come to the city to apply for CDBG grants before. And both of these properties have been beneficiaries of your grant funds to maintain these properties at a high standard. There is light at the end of the tunnel. We have an application into HUD, as our board has supported, to get out of the public housing program altogether. HUD finally has a path and a tool to get us out of this program. We would get vouchers to replace the lack of operating subsidy that we get. Won't affect our tenants at all. They'll still continue to pay 30 to 40% of their income. And they get replaced by vouchers that will allow us to raise the rents to market rents and be able to collect the revenue to reinvest back into the property, of course. So, next slide, please, Sarah. USDA farm worker housing is also one of our primary core programs. In Yuba City, we have 190 units of year-round farm worker with some partial funding from USDA and then rent revenue coming from the rest. This property is located in Richland housing. And as you can see from the slide, it has a minimum requirement of farm labor. Now, farm labor, kind of a broad statement. Applicants can work in areas like canneries, obviously field labor, any type of processing, whether rice plants, what have you. So dryers, things like that. So it's not just exclusively to field work. So, and again, we have 190 of those in Yuba City for year-round farm labor. Next slide, please, here. This is also farm worker housing located in Yuba City. These 79 units of migrant farm worker housing. And so a little bit different from the USDA program. This is a state program that we administer. This is a seasonal program. The state of California owns these buildings and we administer it for them, located on Bernard Drive in Yuba City. Seasonal being that they operate between the 1st of May and the end of October. And then the state allows the residents up to a 1-month extension. And normally, most of the residents take that extension. So usually we have residents there from the 1st of May through the end of November. And again, this is a state-run program that we administer on their behalf. Next slide, please. Homes to families, as many of you are aware, these are city-owned properties, single-family properties that the city purchased years ago that we manage on your behalf, ranging from 2 and 4 bedrooms. We keep, through the agreement that we have with the city, we keep the rents at an affordable range, ranging from 2 to 4 bedrooms, and we have, they're scattered throughout the city, but we have 9 of those single-family homes, as you may know. Next slide, Sarah. This other program is the NSP, or Neighborhood Stabilization Program, also a program that we partnered with you at the city. Back when the ARA funds came to the city in, I'm going to say, probably 2008, 2009, the city received funding and purchased 21 single-family homes and formed a partnership with the city of Live Oak to be the lead agency and therefore purchase these homes, grant deeded them to the housing authority, and then we manage them. And again, we have 2 to 5. We have 1 5-bedroom unit. 3 of those are in Live Oak, and then the other 18 of them are scattered throughout Yuba City. This is all a single-family product that we manage. And next slide, please, Sarah. These are other properties that we have in Yuba City. Percy Avenue Apartments, 8 units, obviously located on Percy. All 1 bedrooms there, 2-story building there. Kingwood Commons on Gray Avenue is a 64-unit property located on Gray Avenue. We have a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms there. And both of those properties, Percy and Kingwood, are multifamily, no restrictions to farm worker, no restrictions to elderly. And then to the right on the slide there is Town Center Senior Manor, located over on the corner of Plumas and B in the downtown area. Those are 28 units that are restricted to seniors. We developed that property in the mid-90s, I believe. And pretty much covers the brick and mortar that we have in Yuba City. Next slide, please, Sierra. And I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Flores to talk about programs that her department administers.
Okay, thank you, Gus. Again, my name is Becky Flores. Can you hear me okay? Okay, thank you. Let's go over the Planning and Community Development Department functions. Our department contracts with local cities and counties for the administration of single-family housing rehabilitation programs and first-time homebuyer programs. And we also oversee the agency's capital improvement projects for RHA-owned properties. And then we also partner in the development of new affordable housing and the preservation of existing affordable housing. And for those projects, we primarily utilize low-income housing tax credits, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Next slide, please. For the single-family owner-occupied rehabilitation program, as I mentioned, that program, we do contract with local cities and counties to administer that. And City of Yuba City, we've been administering for quite some time. And just a real quick overview, the program provides low-interest loans to low-income homeowners that need work to be done on their properties. And it also helps to improve the existing housing stock. Next slide, please. The first-time homebuyer program is one that we also administer for some local cities in the region. City of Yuba City provides loans to low-income first-time homebuyers. Right now, we're having a little bit of issue with stock in the region, but we do have that program available. Next slide, please. Okay, I believe this is the capital improvement slide. And the slide you see before you here is a property that is located at the Richland Housing Campus. This is our rural development farm worker housing. And this was built back in the 70s when, the theory was to build affordable housing as cheaply as possible in every way, shape, or form. And as you can see here, these properties did not really hold up over time. And so we worked with USDA to get some funding to renovate them and finish that project. Next slide, please. Here's another before picture, I believe, of the interiors. So you can see, they're pretty outdated. At one point, we had to take these units offline, but now with the renovations, both inside and outside, they're fully restored, fully occupied. Next slide, please. You can see some of the after pictures. All new siding, windows, new roof. On the before slide, we actually had tarps over the roof. That's all, been corrected. Next slide, please. And here's some of the interiors. Really nice. We were able to really bring these properties up to a livable standard. Next slide, please. So, as Gus mentioned, our mission at the Housing Authority is also to provide affordable housing development. And we do that through partnerships with government agencies, cities, counties, and development partners, both through new construction and rehabilitating existing affordable housing. And we really can't do that on our own. We do rely heavily on partnerships with local cities and counties to bring in the leverage we need to secure the low-income housing tax credits that primarily finance these developments. Next slide, please. So So here's the next few slides are just some samples of development projects that we've already completed in our portfolio. This was 10 units of new constructed ADA accessible farm worker housing at the Richland Housing Campus. Next slide. And then this is New Haven Court over on the corner of Percy Avenue and Miles Avenue in Yuba City. Hopefully some of you have driven by there. It's coming along nicely. Next slide, please. Just a little more detail on New Haven Court. It is 40 units, mostly studios and one bedrooms, permanent supportive housing for persons who are homeless or homeless experiencing mental illness. And we will have on-site case management at this property, as well as supportive services provided through Hands of Hope and behavioral health. And the project is almost done. In fact, we expect to wrap up first part of May, maybe second week of May, and we're going through the lease-up process now. Next slide, please. Okay, and as far as projects in the pipeline for Yuba City, we do have the Richland Village project, as I know many of you are familiar with. This is the site plan for that project. Next slide, please. And here are the renderings for that property. Next slide. The project is 176 units, will be zero net energy. We are targeting affordable workforce housing for this property, and we're still about a year or more out from starting construction. We are in the pre-development phase trying to obtain all the funding that we need to build the project. One of those funding sources is called Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities, and it's a funding source available through the state of California that checks a lot of boxes. It involves a transportation component as well as pedestrian, bike improvements. Basically, the goal with that program is to get people out of their cars. And we're programming elements into this project in order to achieve that goal. Part of the AHSC funding requires that we reach out to the community. And we've done that in meeting with several local partners and also through the form of a community survey. Next slide, please. Just want to share some of the survey results with you just to demonstrate the need for a project like this. Some of the things that we're hearing. One of the questions asked was, which of the following makes it most difficult to find suitable housing in your community? And overwhelmingly, over 48% of the respondents said housing's too expensive, and we know that. As far as feeling safe in your neighborhood from traffic when you're walking around, over 58% of our survey respondents so far are saying they strongly disagree or somewhat disagree with that statement. So they need to feel safe when they're walking around in the community. Another reason why we're trying to incorporate some transportation elements into this project. And then the last highlight here was that we were asking respondents what their number one goal would be for transportation, and they said that they would like to see bus stops feel safe and comfortable. I believe that's it for my portion, and I'll turn it back over to Gus.
Thank you, Becky. Next slide, please, Ciara, so we can wrap up here and open it up for questions. And these are just other projects we have in the pipeline that some are under construction, some we're closing on our financing here really soon in between April and June. In our neighboring county in Linda, we have two projects that we're breaking ground on, and then in Nevada City, we're breaking ground on another one in June. And then that bottom section, just a bunch of projects we have under pre-development. Some in Live Oak, we have one in Live Oak, Plumas Lake, a couple in Wheatland, a couple in Williams, a second phase in Penn Valley, and then another one in Calusa. So we're pretty active developers at the moment with just, our fingers on a lot of different projects. And it's exciting, stressful, rewarding, all at the same time. Next slide, please, Sarah. And this concludes our presentation, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and be happy to answer any comments, questions, concerns you may have.
I'll start first by thanking you for a very thorough and exciting presentation. It's good to know how many darn things you guys are working on and you're making progress on those as well. I'll turn it over to the council first for any questions.
Thank you, Gus, thank you, Mayor. I wanted to ask on the FFS, is that similar to what the Salvation Army does on their family sufficiency program? Is it because of?
So I'm not too familiar with their program, but I believe that was the main goal of, getting folks off of assistance and making them self-sufficient. We've even had some folks, when housing was a little more affordable, move on to home ownership. In some cases, coordinating with the city's first-time homebuyer program. Yes, in essence, I believe it's the same thing.
Normally, how many people do you have in that program? Do you know?
Roughly about 100 folks.
Oh, wow.
Are enrolled in that program. It's HUD gives enrollees up to 5 years to complete their goals in order to be available for the reward payment, so to speak, that HUD gives at the end. Some participants complete their goals before that. Some of them, it takes them a while. Just all depends on where they are. Some of them have educational goals that will then lead them to employment. Some of them have already maybe fulfilled some education, and they're just, needing to some case management to brush up on, resume building or even as simple as getting clothing for job interviews, and so staff tries to coordinate that and help them out. But I think it's a very similar program to what Julius runs over at the Salvation Army.
Right. So the number of 100, do you know how many complete the program successfully about yearly? Do you have a number on that?
We probably have an average of anywhere from 5 to 10 graduates in a calendar year.
Okay.
A good number.
And how much are they receiving, each person receive once they complete the program?
I've seen checks as small as a few $100, and I've seen checks as large as $8,000-9,000, depending on how quickly they move up the scale on their income. If they're starting off with little to no income and they start a job that slowly reduces the payment to the landlord and slowly increases their rent payment to the landlord until they get to that zero HUD assistance check. Yeah, we've seen some pretty decent checks.
That's impressive, and the development that you're doing across the region is just amazing. And it's not cheap, so I could imagine the total budget you're carrying there with your team, right? Keeps you all. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was nice to see how all the great work that you guys are doing.
Yeah, Gus, just real quick, not a question. I just want to thank you. We had part 2 of our ride along. We got to tour some of the facilities that you manage and had this presentation and then some in a lot more depth during that ride, and I really appreciate your time. I learned a lot, and thanks again.
Oh, you're very welcome. And we still need to do the part 3. I know you wanted to see the work we're doing up in Nevada County, so we got to get that on the calendar.
Council.
Councilmember Kirshner joined us on that right along with Councilmember Harris. And so, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, Madam Council Member Espindola, if you'd ever like to get in a car with me and talk about housing and for a bit, and I hope I don't bore you to death, but I'd love to show you around what we're doing in Yuba City, what we're planning on doing, and even outside of it. As Councilmember Harris said, we went out to Yuba County, we went to Live Oak, and there's some pretty exciting things. Invitation's open.
Thank you. We'll probably take you up on that. Councilman Kirchner, you have any questions over there on TV land?
I don't. Through the mayor, thanks again, Gus, for the tour on the 30th. I appreciate the invite from you and from Councilmember Harris. It was very informative, and thank you for taking the time to do that. Thank you.
My pleasure. You're very welcome.
All right. But any comments from the audience? We have a comment coming your way. Would that be directed towards us or towards Mr. Becerra?
There we go. Thank you. My name is Lawrence Mertz. I live in North Yuba City. I'm concerned about the number of houses you have you control in the Housing Authority here in Yuba City. Do you take the loss in tax revenue that those houses do not create and add it to the cost of operating those houses?
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Those houses don't create any tax revenue to run the city, yet they use city services. So I'm curious if the loss in tax revenue is included in the cost of operating those houses and managing them.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, sir, if you're referring to
The 540 houses.
the fact that those properties that we own don't pay property taxes,
That is correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Gotcha. Just want to making sure I was understanding your question. Yes, so that's one of the tools that allows us to keep the rents affordable, right? If we had to pay property taxes, it'd be very difficult to charge affordable rents. So state law, through their welfare exemption program with properties owned by affordable housing developers, nonprofit affordable housing developers, is a tool that, again, just allows us to keep those rents at an affordable rate for the community.
I can understand the cost of housing in this community. I'm just wondering who's absorbing loss. It looks like the taxpayers are. Thank you.
Well, we don't operate any of our properties at losses at this point, and we've had a couple, but our other properties that generate a profit keep those properties in check. And so there's kind of within our own portfolio is where we cover those losses, if you may.
Any other comments from the audience? Sierra?
No public comment.
All right. Well, we'll conclude. I believe we'll be scheduling you, Gus, for a follow-up on Richland Village. Ms. Flores, Mr. Becerra, thank you so much for taking the time and presenting to us tonight. Very thorough. And like I said before, and Councilwoman Espandola mentioned, it's awesome to see how much you're doing in our community. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Thank you again for your time, and have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
All right. All right. I'm going to back up on the agenda because I forgot, which I tend to do sometimes, not by design, to have the city attorney report out on our closed session items. Mr. City Attorney, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was no reportable action taken in closed session.
There you go. Thank you, sir.